Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 576, The Deciphered Message. Chapter 576, The Deciphered Message. With Nivis watching him, Alaric couldn't concentrate on his training. He felt like he was being judged and it made him uncomfortable. After getting the rewards for completing his daily mission, Alaric left the training ground. Nivis silently followed him like a shadow. Alaric ignored her and just headed straight to the mansion. On his way to his study, he encountered Sekus. "Your Highness, I have deciphered the coded messages," he calmly reported. Hearing this, Alaric nodded and responded. "Good work. Follow me to my study and show it to me." Sekus nodded. A moment later, they arrived at the study. Alaric took off his wet training clothes and changed into a loose shirt. "You two may sit." He motioned for the two to sit on the sofa adjacent to his desk. Sekus and Nivis sat next to each other without saying a word. After wiping off his sweat, Alaric took his seat and looked at Sekus. "Did you write it down?" Sekus nodded and handed him a piece of paper on which he had written the deciphered message. They only exchanged 4 lines in the short moment they saw each other. Alaric grabbed the paper and read the deciphered message. "Alaric is a venerable. The poison will be sent in 3 days. I will keep an eye on him. Do you know what to do once you are discovered?" Alaric frowned as he put down the paper. It was as he had suspected. Samantha was part of the cult. He finally understood why the Empress was acting weirdly during their encounter. It must have been caused by the poison, or perhaps they used other methods to confuse the Empress's mind. Feeling curious, Nivis snatched the deciphered message from him. "I knew it. I told you we couldn't trust that woman," she scoffed. Alaric leaned on his seat with a grim look. Just what kind of poison is it that it could even affect the mind of a venerable? Esquila Veronica was no ordinary mythical knight. She was considered one of the apex venerables in the entire continent. Ordinary poisons wouldn't work on someone at her level. "Ignorant." Nivis shook her head in disdain. "There are many kinds of poison that can attack the mind, and they are quite common in where I came from. There are even poisons that could kill your so-called venerables in just minutes." Alaric looked at her and asked, "Is there any way to make those poisons ineffective?" Nivis crossed her arms and replied with a nod. "Of course. You just need to make an antidote." "Then, do you know how to make one?" Alaric stared at her with anticipation, which means that he was also vulnerable to it. He wanted to prepare an antidote since he was their next target. Nivis shook her head. "How would I know? I'm not an alchemist." Alaric's face twitched at her response. He subconsciously exerted strength on his hands, which almost pulverized the desk. "TSK. It looks like the table needs to be replaced." He smiled faintly while shaking his head. 3 days later, the senior inspector, Jaemund Felton, returned to the mansion with about 500 inspectors from the inspection department. Most of them were just ordinary people with no traces of mana in their bodies. 50 of them were at the level of knight apprentices, and there were only 3 knights. Alaric quietly observed them and used his appraisal to see who would be useful for him. Unfortunately, he didn't find anyone remarkable. Other than the senior inspector, who had a decent level of investigation trait, the rest were mediocre. However, Alaric wasn't too disappointed. "Your Highness, this is the largest number of personnel I can mobilize." Jaemund sent him an embarrassed smile. He came from a commoner household, and it took him years of effort to climb his way to his current position. He didn't have generational wealth that allowed him to have a wide array of network. "Good job, Senior Inspector Jaemund. This is more than enough for what I need." Alaric smiled as he tapped the man's shoulder. The senior inspector was relieved to hear this. "What do you want us to do, Your Highness? Just give us the word." Alaric looked at the inspectors and announced, "I want you all to keep an eye on the suspected members of the heretic cult. For your safety, you don't need to be in close proximity to them. You just need to observe them from afar. You will then make a report on what you have observed and submit it to me." The task didn't sound difficult, but it still carried some risk. The inspectors looked nervous. They had never directly confronted the heretic cult. Whenever there were cases that involved the heretic cult, the inspection department would immediately pull out after some surface-level investigation. Sensing their concern, Alaric reassured them. You don't need to be worried. You will be accompanied by the Imperial Guards, so your safety will be guaranteed. If a fight occurs, you may leave the scene immediately. For added security, each one of you will receive an amulet that can defend against minor curses, Alaric added. The heretic cult was known for its powerful curses, so he asked the Empress to send amulets for the inspectors. Fortunately, she agreed with his request. Alaric gestured at his subordinates to bring the items. 10 wooden boxes were placed neatly in front of the inspectors. Each box contained 50 amulets. Senior Inspector Jaemund, please distribute the amulets to your subordinates. Alaric nodded to the senior inspector. Jaemund Felton sent Alaric a look of gratitude. He knew that those amulets were precious items, but Alaric didn't even hesitate to give them to the inspectors. After receiving the amulets, the inspectors became less worried. They also had a good impression of the Estanian prince, so they chose to accept the job despite the dangers involved. Alaric invited the senior inspector to his study to discuss the details of the work. Chapter 577 Information about the Cult Leader. Chapter 577 Information about the Cult Leader. While Alaric was discussing with the senior inspector, a servant came to inform him of the arrival of the Grand Commander. So he's finally here. The Empress promised him that she would send the Grand Commander to help him with the investigation. Bring him here. Alaric sent Galliner a look. I understand. Galliner nodded and left to escort the Grand Commander. A moment later, he returned with a gray-haired old man wearing silver and blue armor. He had a rigid face that sported sword scars. He entered the room with a confident gait. Greetings, Your Highness. I apologize for my tardiness. He made a fist-palm salute as he greeted Alaric. Alaric stood up from his seat and smiled at him. It's an honor to have you here, Grand Commander. I have been wanting to make friends with you, but we are both busy men, so I couldn't find the right timing. The Grand Commander grinned and replied, The honor is mine, Your Highness. I have long heard of your glorious name, so it has been a wish of mine to speak with the youngest venerable in history. The two exchanged pleasantries. Alaric silently used his appraisal on the Grand Commander. Ludwig Emerson, Mythical Knight, EXP. 7752/10,000. Potential SS. Traits. Close Combat, SSS. Halberd Mastery, SSS. Horseback Riding, SS. Swordsmanship, SS. Intimidation, S. Archery, S. Command, S. Pain Tolerance, S. Spear Mastery, S. Strength. 1,277. Stamina. 1,249. Agility. 1,250. Vitality. 1,420. Endurance. 1,388. Mana. 1,339. This guy isn't any weaker than the Empress, but can I really trust him? After his encounter with Samantha, he realized that the heretic cult had already infiltrated Veronica deeply. He didn't know which people could be trusted. This is Senior Inspector Jaemund Felton from the Inspection Department. His men will be responsible for the investigation. He introduced the Senior Inspector to the Grand Commander. Jaemund Felton was awestruck. He had only seen the Grand Commander from afar, and he had never spoken once to him before. It's a great honor, Grand Commander. The Grand Commander laughed and patted his shoulder. Relax. We will be working together soon, so there is no need to be formal. Just be casual with me. Yes, my lord. All right, you two sit down. We will discuss everything from the start. Alaric made a hand gesture at them. The two men took their seats and listened to his plans. Do you have any questions? Your Highness, this could greatly affect the peace of the city. Even the entire country would be affected. Do we really have to go this far? The Grand Commander spoke of his concerns. He was the highest military officer of the Empire, so it was his responsibility to ensure the people's safety. Alaric's face was grim as he responded. From what I have heard, the heretic cult has been a big problem for Veronica for several decades. If you leave them be, they will only continue to grow. There might come a time when they would have the strength to overthrow the Empress. The Grand Commander's face fell upon hearing this, but he stayed silent and listened to his words. Grand Commander, I know you only want your people to be safe, but they will never remain truly safe if the heretic cult is here. Your people will live in constant fear. Alaric stared deeply at him. We must eliminate them now, he exclaimed, his aura subconsciously leaking out, surprising the Grand Commander. His strength. This cannot be. From what he knew, Alaric had just advanced to the mythical knight realm. However, Alaric's aura wasn't that of a newly ascended mythical knight. The young venerable was nearly on the same level as him. This filled him with profound shock. He took a deep breath to calm his emotions. He then cleared his throat and said, "To tell you the truth, I have made investigations on the heretic cult on my own, and I discovered something alarming. The cult leader isn't human. He is a half-beast and half-demonkin at the peak of the catastrophe grade," he exclaimed with a look of horror. Alaric was stunned by his words. There is someone like that in the cult? He couldn't believe it, but it all made sense now. He finally understood why an apex expert like the Empress was unable to eliminate the heretic cult. It turned out that there was a dangerous monster at the helm, controlling the cult from the background. That's right. The Grand Commander nodded. We fought him 2 decades ago, and he left me with this scar. He removed his armor and took off his shirt, revealing a gruesome scar on his chest. I only survived that day because of Her Majesty. If it weren't for her, I might have perished back then. There was fear in his eyes when he mentioned this. Suddenly, a notification popped up in front of him. Your mission has been updated. Mission: destroy the heretic cult. Mission difficulty: Hell. An organization run by a mysterious expert has infiltrated Veronica and spread fear throughout the whole nation. They have deceived the ignorant people and taken the lives of many under the guise of sacrificial offerings. Eliminate this evil organization to bring back peace to Veronica. Mission rewards: 15,000 battle points, 2,500 EXP, 300 stat points, SSS-Rank Trait Card X1, Random Trait Upgrade Card X1, Mythical Knight Card X1. Penalty for failure: Veronica will fall into the hands of the heretic cult within 10 years. Alaric nearly jumped when he saw the rewards, but he quickly composed himself. High rewards meant that the mission was incredibly dangerous. He closed the system screen and looked at the Grand Commander. Lord Grand Commander, I will request more support from Estania if you are willing to join me in this fight. The Grand Commander fell into silence. He came here thinking that this would only be a minor investigation to determine the killers of the bishop. However, Alaric's goal was actually to eliminate the entire heretic cult. I can't decide this on my own, Your Highness. I need to inform Her Majesty first. Chapter 578: The Empress's Hallucinations. Chapter 578: The Empress's Hallucinations. The Grand Commander left after bidding them farewell. Your Highness! Jaemund Felton was present throughout the whole conversation, so he heard everything clearly. He was scared by Alaric's plan and wanted to withdraw from the deal. I know what you're thinking, Senior Inspector. But before you make a final decision, please think about it carefully. Alaric stared deeply at him. You mentioned that the heretic cult has been in Veronica for decades. There must have been many cases of disappearances and kidnappings. How did you? Jaemund Felton stared at him in disbelief. Alaric shook his head. It's not hard to guess. I have also heard of rumors about the heretic cult. They offer human sacrifices for their false gods. I'm sure Veronica's officials know about this. It's just that they are powerless to do anything. Please give it some thought before you make your decision. Jaemund Felton frowned, deep in his thoughts. After a moment of silence, he stood up from his seat and said, Your Highness, I will persuade the other senior inspectors and see if we can ask for more support from the inspection department. All right, but I hope it won't take too long, and make sure not to leak any news to the public. We don't want the heretic cult to know about our plans. Alaric reminded him. I understand. I will remember your words. The senior inspector bid him farewell and left with his subordinates. After they left, Alaric wrote a letter requesting military support from Estania. He mentioned the threat that Veronica was facing and the possibility of an alliance between the two empires. This would be a good thing for Estania. If we can form an alliance with Veronica, the only threat left for the country would be the monsters from the Enchanted Woodlands. Alaric handed the letter to Einar and instructed him. Send our fastest bird to deliver this letter to the Imperial Palace. To which Imperial Palace? To Estania. I understand, Lord Venerable. In the Imperial Palace of Veronica, inside her bedchamber, Esquila Veronica was leaning against the wall. Her face was covered in thick beads of sweat. It's acting up again. She groaned as she clutched her head. It felt like her skull was being cracked open with a hammer. I need my medicine. She could feel her face heating up. She even saw apparitions in front of her, but she was already immune to this. It has been a while since she had these hallucinations. Every time they appeared, it felt like something was controlling her mind. She stumbled and fell to the floor. Her face was pale and it looked like she was in great pain. Just a little bit more. She unleashed her mana to temporarily clear her mind. She then grabbed a pill bottle from her cabinet with her shaking hands. She opened the bottle and took one pill. She then quickly popped it into her mouth. As the medicine melted away, she could feel her mind clearing up. The splitting headache also disappeared, giving her immediate relief. Luckily, I have this medicine. I should ask Samantha for more. she thought when she noticed that there were only a few pills left inside the bottle. Knock! Knock! A series of knocks on the door interrupted her thoughts. Esquila didn't respond right away. She wiped off her sweat with a clean cloth and adjusted her emotions. Who is it? Your Majesty, it's me. The Grand Commander's voice echoed from outside the room. You may enter. Creak. The Grand Commander stepped inside the bedchamber and bowed deeply with an apologetic look. Please pardon me for disturbing your Majesty's rest. But there is an urgent matter that I need to discuss with you. Seeing his serious expression, the Empress furrowed her eyebrows and replied. Wait for me at the study. We can talk there. Your servant obeys. After he left, the Empress changed into a new set of clothes before she headed to the study room. The Grand Commander was already there when she arrived. Have a seat. She smiled at the old man while motioning for him to sit. Thank you, Your Majesty. The old man took his seat. The Empress observed his expression and asked, Why do you look so gloomy, Lord Grand Commander? Did something happen that made you upset? The Grand Commander waited for the Empress to sit comfortably before he replied. I had a conversation with the Estanian prince and he told me his motives. He told her everything he discussed with Alaric without missing a single detail. The Empress adjusted her posture and furrowed her eyebrows. Do you think he is being truthful? She was afraid that it was a plot. She couldn't bring herself to believe that Estania would willingly offer them help. Both countries had been enemies for many years, so she found it unbelievable for an enemy prince to make such a request. The Grand Commander shook his head. I am not sure, Your Majesty. Alaric is a difficult man to read. At first, I thought that he only came here to seek justice for the dead bishop, but it seems like he had other plans. I think Your Majesty should speak with him properly when your mind is clear. As the Empress's most trusted subordinate, he was aware of her hallucinations. Other people thought that the Empress was just moody, but he knew that it was far from the truth. The invincible Empress was afflicted with some kind of condition that no doctors or healers could understand. Esquila nodded. Set up a meeting with him. I would like to speak with him in private. Don't let anyone else know about this. I understand. The Grand Commander nodded. Just as he was about to leave, the Empress called out to him. Hold on. Is there anything else, Your Majesty? He looked at the Empress and waited for her to speak. Tell Samantha to bring more of that medicine. The Empress instructed. The Grand Commander frowned. He looked like he wanted to say something, but he was hesitant to say it. Your Majesty, I think. Chapter 579 Incident in the Imperial Palace. Chapter 579 Incident in the Imperial Palace. Your Majesty, I think you should stop taking that medicine, the Grand Commander suggested with a look of concern. Hearing this, the Empress frowned. Why? It's the only thing that keeps me sane. You know it too, Lord Grand Commander. The Grand Commander sighed helplessly. Your Majesty, I thought about it for a long time and I believe that woman has something to do with your hallucinations. You mean Samantha? The Empress found it incredulous. I have been friends with her for a long time. She will never do something like that. She reasoned with a trace of anger. The Grand Commander shook his head. I have been by your side even before you became the ruler of Veronica. That woman has never been your friend. She just appeared recently. Don't you find it strange? How come she has the right medicine for your hallucinations? The Empress was in shock. What are you saying? She had memories of Samantha, but when she tried to recall how they had met, her head suddenly started hurting. She grimaced and rubbed her temples. Your Majesty, is it acting up again? The Grand Commander became even more worried. The Empress's hallucinations were becoming more frequent lately, and it was starting to affect her image. The constant changes in her personality were already known to some officials, and some of them even believed that she was ill. If news of this were to spread, the whole nation would fall into chaos and some rebel groups might rise for an opportunity to take the throne. He even heard of rumors that some aristocrats were starting to make unusual moves in their territories. If there were no improvements to the Empress's condition, she would lose the trust of her subjects. I'm fine. Just bring me the medicine. Esquila shook her head and waved her hand. The Grand Commander didn't budge and just stared at her with a stubborn look. Seeing this, the Empress frowned. Didn't you hear me? I apologize, Your Majesty, but I think you should stop taking that medicine. I will find another way to dispel your hallucinations. The old man replied. You! The Empress wanted to say something, but she suddenly grabbed her head, her face filled with pain. The Grand Commander quickly grabbed her hand and infused his mana into her body. Please excuse me. The Empress was startled. The face of the Grand Commander in front of her suddenly changed and turned into someone that she had long forgotten. It was the face of the late Veronican Emperor whom she had killed. You! It's you! She was furious. She unleashed her mana and released a punch with full force. Whoosh! Your Majesty, it's me. You need to wake up. Don't let those apparitions control your mind. The Grand Commander defended himself while trying to calm her down. Their battle caused the Imperial Palace to shake. The Empress's study room collapsed under their overwhelming power. The Imperial Guards were alerted by the commotion and they quickly rushed to the scene. However, they were stunned when they saw the Empress attacking the Grand Commander. Lock down the palace and don't let anyone in. The Grand Commander shouted to the Imperial Guards. However, the Imperial Guards hesitated. They found the situation very confusing, so they didn't know what to do. Left with no choice, the Grand Commander could only lie. Hurry! Her Majesty is under a strong curse. Hearing this, the Imperial Guards finally reacted. Some of them chose to follow the Grand Commander's orders, but there were still some who chose to remain to observe the situation. The Grand Commander didn't bother to explain. He focused his attention on the Empress and shouted, "Your Majesty, please wake up. Shut your mouth. I already killed you. How are you still alive?" The Empress ignored his words and continued to attack him relentlessly. The protective engravings on the palace were forced to activate, temporarily keeping everything from collapsing. The Grand Commander was passively defending himself, and this gave the Empress the chance to exploit his openings. A sword suddenly appeared in her hands. With a mighty roar, she brandished her sword and swung it with incredible force. Whoosh! The Grand Commander didn't bring his halberd, so he could only use his secondary weapon, his trusty sword. He lifted his sword and infused his mana into it to block the Empress's attack. Clang! He managed to block the Empress's sword, but he was sent flying by the residual force behind her attack. He crashed into the wall and fell on the floor. Lord Grand Commander! A few Imperial Guards rushed to help him, while the others frowned and continued to observe, unable to make a decision. Get away from me! The Grand Commander shouted to the Imperial Guards. They might be killed by the Empress, so he harshly ordered them to leave. At this moment, the Empress suddenly charged towards him, preparing to stab him with her sword. Esquila Veronica! Wake the fuck up, you stupid girl! The Grand Commander roared. His words shocked everyone in the palace. His rude words stunned the befuddled Empress. She stopped in her tracks, her mind in disarray. In that brief moment, her mind momentarily cleared up. She looked around and saw that her study had become a mess with all the broken walls and scattered items on the floor. She saw the confused Imperial Guards and the Grand Commander who was kneeling on the floor with blood leaking from the corner of his mouth. What happened here? She muttered in disbelief. She looked down and realized that she was holding her sword. She subconsciously threw it away when she realized what had happened. Clang, clang. I did this? The Grand Commander stood up and approached her with cautious steps. He then kneeled before her and spoke emotionally. Your Majesty, please punish me. This is all my fault. The Empress stared at him, not knowing what to do. The Grand Commander lifted his head and gave her a secret signal. Realizing his intentions, the Empress opened her mouth and spoke in a cold voice. Lord Grand Commander, you will be... Chapter 580 Alaric meets the Empress again. Chapter 580 Alaric meets the Empress again. Lord Grand Commander, you will be punished for your actions. But that can wait. She looked around and gestured at the Imperial Guards. Clean up at the palace and inform the officials not to worry. Not a word of this must be spoken to the public. Do you understand? Sensing her cold gaze, the Imperial Guards nervously responded. Yes, Your Majesty. The Empress turned her head to the Grand Commander and said, Follow me. We need to talk. The Grand Commander picked up his aching body and followed the Empress to the garden behind the Imperial Palace. The Imperial Guards wanted to follow them, but the Empress sent them away with a signal. When they arrived at the garden, the fragrant scent of the blooming flowers assailed their nostrils. The Empress walked along the cobbled pathway between the flower fields, while the Grand Commander silently followed her. In the middle of the garden was a pavilion surrounded by a man-made pond. The Empress brought the Grand Commander to this place. There was no one around, so Esquila could finally put away her aloof attitude. She turned around and looked at the Grand Commander with concern. I'm so sorry, Lord Grand Commander. Are you all right? She looked at him with guilt in her eyes. She hurt her most loyal subordinate and it filled her with great remorse. The Grand Commander smiled reassuringly. I am fine, Your Majesty. I may be old, but I am still a mythical knight. This little bit of scratch is nothing to me. Esquila sighed as she took her seat. Jay, just what happened right there? Why did I suddenly attack you? She tried to recall what had happened, but she couldn't remember anything. The Grand Commander took a deep breath and narrated everything that happened. After hearing the whole story, the Empress furrowed her eyebrows and fell into deep thought. If what you're saying is true, then they must have cast some kind of hypnotic spell on me. The Grand Commander nodded, his face looking grim. For it to work against a mythical knight, it must be a high-level integrated monster trait. He stared deeply at the Empress and said, "Your Majesty, this must be related to the heretic cult. Only those lunatics would dare to target the Empress of Veronica." Esquila agreed with him. "Samantha, how dare she deceive me?" she muttered coldly, her aura rising drastically, causing fluctuations in the air. "Your Majesty, that woman has approached the Estanian prince. She might do something to him." The Grand Commander spoke with concern. Considering the relationship between Veronica and Estania, there would definitely be war if something were to happen to Alaric. Esquila also realized this. She narrowed her eyes and instructed, "Prepare an ordinary carriage. I would like to visit him privately." "Right away, Your Majesty." Knowing that it was an urgent matter, the Grand Commander didn't waste any time and left right away. Inside his study, Alaric was reading some old documents sent by the inspection department. These documents were about the cases of disappearances and kidnappings that were never resolved. "What do you think, Scylla?" He looked at Scylla, who was helping him with the task. Scylla put down the document she was reading and replied, "All of them are consistent. The clues left are almost identical, so we can conclude that it was done by the same people. Right? The locations of the crimes also matched the data provided by the inspection department. We should head to these locations once the Imperial Guards are here." Alaric rubbed his chin thoughtfully. But wouldn't this anger the heretic cult? Scylla was a bit skeptical of the plan. She thought that it was too hasty to make a move without enough preparation. Alaric shook his head. "We are only targeting the small hideouts." Using a quill, he encircled a few locations on the map of Sorrel. "We will capture these hideouts and he slammed his palm into the table, giving Scylla quite the shock. Just as Scylla was about to say something, a series of knocks on the door drifted into their ears. "Knock! Knock! Knock!" Alaric cleared his throat and said, "You may come in." Creak. Galliner stepped in and reported, "Lord Venerable, the Grand Commander will be here soon, and it looks like he brought someone important." Alaric raised an eyebrow as he mumbled, "I didn't expect him to return so soon." He stood up from his seat. "Let's go greet our guests. It would be impolite to make them wait in front of the mansion." "Yes, Lord Venerable." Alaric stepped out of his study while trying to guess who the Grand Commander had brought with him. It wouldn't be Her Majesty, right? He laughed at his own thoughts. As they walked down the stairs, he saw Einar and the others escorting the two guests. "Your Majesty!" Alaric was stunned when he saw who had come with the Grand Commander. He rushed down the stairs and did a fistpalm salute. "We meet again." Esquila nodded indifferently. Alaric was taken aback at the sudden change in her attitude. When he met her in the throne room, she was like a gentle woman with a bubbly personality. However, the woman in front of him exuded an aloof aura that would subconsciously make others feel that she was unreachable. Is this her true personality? Alaric thought to himself. "To what do I owe this pleasure, Your Majesty?" he asked with a smile. The Empress didn't respond. She looked around, searching for a familiar figure, but she didn't find the person she was looking for. She used her spiritual perception to extend her search and finally discovered the familiar aura in the kitchen. So she's really here. That snake of a woman. Her eyes flashed with a cold glint. She turned her head to Alaric and said in a commanding tone, "Let's talk somewhere more private." "All right, please follow me." Alaric nodded. Chapter 581 The Empress agrees with the plan. Chapter 581 The Empress agrees with the plan. Meanwhile, inside the kitchen, a group of cooks and servants were busying themselves to prepare the next meal. Samantha was also there to help them, but she had other plans in mind. "I have been trying to get closer to these lowly bugs just so I could move on to the next part of my plan." "Miss Samantha, you shouldn't do these chores. Just leave it to us. Your beautiful hands might get calluses," said a young maidservant as she snatched the knife from her. "That won't do. I cannot let you guys do all the work." She shook her head with a smile. They were bickering back and forth when a servant came to the kitchen with urgent news. "Big news. Her Majesty is here." She came with the Lord Grand Commander. Hearing this, Samantha's eyes flashed with surprise. "Why is she here?" "Please excuse me, everyone. I need to go get something upstairs. I'll leave the work here in your hands." She excused herself and left the kitchen in a hurry. As soon as she left the kitchen, her face became unsightly. "What is going on here? Why do I have a bad feeling about this? I need to know the situation." She went up the stairs and was about to head straight to Alaric's study, but she was stopped by a blue-haired woman. "You are not allowed to go beyond this point. Leave at once." Nivis stared at her with undisguised contempt. Samantha felt like punching her face, but she held back her fury and let out a smile. "Is there something going on, Miss Nivis? The security wasn't this tight before." Nivis scoffed after seeing her acting. She waved her hand as if she were shooing away an insect. Nothing is going on. I just don't want you here. Now piss off. Veins protruded on Samantha's face. She was so furious that she almost tore her mask off. I don't know how I may have offended you. I apologize for whatever I did. She forced a smile. Nivis sent her a disdainful smile before she turned around and walked away. Samantha narrowed her eyes, her heart seething with fury. What's with that attitude? Did they discover my identity? Miss Samantha, please forgive her. Miss Nivis just doesn't want any woman getting close to the Lord Venerable. An apologetic voice drifted into her ears. Taken aback, Samantha turned around and saw Scylla giving her an awkward smile. This woman, what's her name again? Oh right, it's Scylla. Hello, Miss Scylla. I'm fine. I was just shocked. I thought I did something to upset her. Hearing you say this is such a relief. Samantha put her hand on her chest and faked a relieved look. Scylla smiled faintly. You have nothing to worry about. Miss Nivis is just that blunt. I hope you won't be offended by her comments. Not at all. Samantha shook her head. Now then, please excuse me. I still have other matters to attend to. Scylla nodded to her and left without looking back. Samantha watched her leave with a thoughtful look. So that bitch Nivis is just jealous that I'm becoming closer to Alaric. She sneered. I will deal with you once I complete my task. Inside the study, only Alaric, the Grand Commander, and the Empress were present. This was because the Empress told him to send the others out. I came here to ask you more about the situation. The Empress observed the young Estanian prince. She was having hallucinations when she first met him, so she hadn't gotten a clearer look at him. He was handsome and he had this princely temperament unique to the Imperials, but the one thing about him that caught her attention was his aura. He hid it deeply, but she could sense his overwhelming power that was way beyond his age. He was the most talented person she had ever met. His talent had even surpassed her own. When I was his age, I was only a knight. While the Empress was observing him, Alaric was doing the same. She seemed like a different person now. It was a complete change of personality, so Alaric didn't know how to act in her presence. She didn't specifically mention the heretic cult, but he knew that she came to verify this matter. This was directly involved in the safety of her empire, so he could understand her urgency. I believe the Lord Grand Commander has already informed you about my plan. That's right. I'd like to hear more about it. Can you really promise that Estania will send troops to support us in this battle? It almost sounded like a plea, but this was how desperate she was to eliminate the heretic cult. Alaric nodded with a smile. I don't want to boast, but I had a remarkable achievement during our battle against Haroun. His Majesty, the Estanian Emperor, owes our household a huge favor. I have already sent word back home and it should reach His Majesty's ears soon. In a few days we should get a response from him. If you don't believe me, we can wait for his response. The Empress was a bit surprised by his confidence. It didn't seem like she was speaking to a young man, but someone who was more mature. Since you are that confident, I will trust you. She adjusted her posture. There was a moment of silence before she spoke again. Once we receive the confirmation from Estania, I will mobilize the troops on our side. Tell me your plans so we can work on it. Yes, Your Majesty. Alaric nodded with a serious expression. He told her about the various stages of his plans. The Empress listened and she voiced her own ideas to make his plan even more solid. Her suggestions were excellent, so Alaric didn't complain and accepted them. After a long talk, Ischila stood up and said with a stern look, I will send you the troops tomorrow. You can command them however you want, but you must promise me that this won't affect the citizens. Alaric nodded. I will make sure that everyone will be safe. Chapter 582. Samantha gives Alaric a bottle of medicine to boost his sexual performance. Chapter 582. Samantha gives Alaric a bottle of medicine to boost his sexual performance. After the discussion, Alaric escorted them out of the mansion. On their way out, they encountered Samantha in the main hall. She stood there as if she were waiting for them, but Alaric and the Empress ignored her. Samantha bowed deeply and greeted the Empress with a respectful smile. Your Majesty. The Empress and Alaric passed by without saying a word. Upon stepping out of the mansion, the Empress turned her head at him. Before I go, I have one piece of advice for you. Alaric raised his eyebrows, curious to hear her next words. You must tread carefully. There might be snakes lurking in the corner, waiting for an opportunity to strike you. Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. Are you talking about Samantha? You don't have to worry about that. I am already aware. His eyebrows relaxed as he let out a faint smile. The Empress was surprised. You are. Alaric shook his head. I will deal with her in due time, but that will have to wait since she is still of use. With Samantha's strength, he believed that she had a high position in the heretic cult. He was waiting for the right timing to catch the person she had been contacting in secret. I underestimated you. It seems like my worries are unnecessary. The Empress shook her head, turned around, and left. The Grand Commander saluted Alaric before he followed the Empress. He then opened the carriage door for her. Soon, their carriage left and disappeared into the night. When he could no longer see the carriage, Alaric headed back inside the mansion. The next day, the promised troops arrived in front of the mansion. There were about 10,000 of them. There weren't many of them, but they were all part of the Imperial Guards, the best of the best in all of Veronica. By using his appraisal, Alaric discovered that the weakest among them was a knight. There were also dozens of elite knights and 10 transcendents. It was a stacked unit, and this made him incredibly pleased. Shall we begin the operation? With a smile, Alaric looked at the senior inspector, whose anxiety was evident on his face. Yes, Your Highness. Jaemund Felton was intimidated by the aura exuded by the Imperial Guards. They didn't even deliberately release their aura, but he was still suffocated by their presence. He took a deep breath and turned his head to his subordinates. The inspectors looked visibly nervous, but they tried to remain calm so as not to embarrass the senior inspector. Inspectors, you will be assigned to team up with the Imperial Guards to investigate the suspected members of the heretic cult. There is a high chance that fights may break out during the investigation, but no need to fret. The Imperial Guards will handle all the fights, and you will only be responsible for. A lengthy speech followed, but everyone listened carefully. This was a mission with some degree of danger involved, so they were afraid to miss anything important. That would be all. Jaemund Felton ended his speech and nodded to Alaric. It was Alaric's cue to take the floor. He confidently stepped forward and opened his mouth. His calm, yet authoritative voice echoed. Your assigned teams have already been posted on the bulletin board right there. Find your team members and proceed to your assigned target once you are ready. As soon as his voice fell, everyone turned their heads to the big bulletin board. Alaric didn't linger after the announcement. He went back to the mansion to make his own preparations. Inside his room, Samantha helped him put on his armor. Your Highness, are you heading out to find the members of the heretic cult? She asked all of a sudden. Alaric looked at her through the mirror and asked, Why do you ask? I'm just worried about you. Everyone knows that the heretic cult is a dangerous group. Your Highness must be careful out there. Samantha spoke with a look of concern. Alaric almost laughed at her good acting, but he controlled his emotions. He let out a smile and responded. The heretic cult might be dangerous, but I am not a weak man. I will be fine. Samantha grabbed his hand and stared into his eyes. Please come back unharmed. I have to hand it to her. She is a good actress. She's even better than some actresses in the troops back home. Alaric played along with her. He took her in his arms and gently rubbed her back. I will be back soon. Samantha quivered at the unexpected body contact. She resisted the urge to push him away and acted like the shy woman she had portrayed. I will give my body to you after you return, she mumbled. Alaric chuckled. You can't take that back anymore. She smiled faintly, her eyes filled with passion. She took something out of her bosom and handed it to him. Please take this. It's a medicine from my hometown. Can help you clear your mind. Alaric could still feel her warmth from the bottle. He looked at the pills inside and smiled in gratitude. Thank you. Samantha dove into his arms, her hands moving towards a certain bulge. She then said in a seductive voice, I heard that it also helps in boosting performance. Alaric scoffed in his mind, but he pretended to be amazed. There's such an amazing medicine? This must be the poison that she got from her contact. Did she finally run out of patience? He thought to himself. We will know once you return, Your Highness. She lifted her head and sent him a knowing look. Alaric laughed as if he were looking forward to that day. I must go now. Wait for me here. He grabbed his swords and put on a robe over his armor. He took one last look at her, as if he was reluctant to leave. Creak. As soon as he left the room, Samantha's face darkened. Alaric, I thought it would take me a long time to control you, but you are more gullible than that stupid empress. Forget about taking my body. The moment you return here, you will be nothing more than my puppet. The corner of her lips curved up to form an evil smile. Alaric headed out of the mansion and saw his subordinates waiting for him outside. They had already prepared a disaster-grade horse for him. He took the reins from Galliner and jumped onto his horse. After expertly putting his feet on the stirrups, he looked at his subordinates and said, We are heading out. He lightly squeezed his legs to urge his horse to move. Yes, Lord Venerable. At this moment, Nivis urged her horse to move next to Alaric's. You have that woman's scent on you. She scoffed at him with a look of disdain. Alaric looked at her and laughed. The more I look at you, the more I find it hilarious. Hearing this, Nivis frowned. What do you mean? Alaric shook his head, stifling his laughter. I mean, you are a centaurus, but you are riding a horse. In her embarrassment, Nivis released a punch, but Alaric seemed to be prepared for this. He blocked her fist with his palm with an amused expression. All right, that's enough, and remember what I told you. He reminded her. This centaurus nearly exposed herself in front of Samantha. Luckily, Scylla was there to clear things up. Nivis pulled back her fist and snorted. Stop nagging me. I know what to do. Alaric shook his head helplessly. Their goal was only to intimidate the heretic cult. Alaric moving with the Imperial Guards and the inspection department was only for show. His real objective was something else. Without me at the mansion, Samantha will definitely contact the man from the heretic cult, and that man will help us find their main headquarters. He smiled faintly as he took out the medicine bottle he got from Samantha. What's that? Nivis's curious voice drifted into his ears. I got this from that woman. According to her, it's a medicine that boosts sexual performance. Alaric responded with a chuckle. Nivis sneered. That's definitely laced with poison. Alaric grinned. He clenched his fist and used his mana to burn the bottle. The high temperature from the flame melted the bottle and pills inside until there was nothing left. His hand that came in contact with the melted pills blackened for a moment, but it soon recovered to normal in a few seconds. The poison was only potent through direct consumption. With his high vitality, it only made his skin slightly irritated upon contact. Nivis looked disgusted upon seeing this. As expected, I could tell since the first time we met that she is suspicious. Alaric covered his ears with mana. He couldn't be bothered to listen to her words because he had already heard her say this over and over. Hey, are you listening to me? Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.